It's an exciting day here on Fake Chats with Andrew Burnett. Today, I have a very special friend with me, my friend, actor Randall Franks. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Andrew. It's good to be with you today, and I hope folks are blessed by something we talk about.
Well, I'm excited to have you here today. First of all, one of my favorite shows is In the Heat of the Night, and with you being a part of that, I'm just excited to talk about that. But first, I want you to tell our people a little bit about the background of you becoming an actor and how it all started.
Well, primarily, I think God placed me there largely because He allowed me to cross over from music. I had started touring when I was 13 years old, and I had a teenage bluegrass band, and was blessed to go to the Grand Ole Opry with that group, and then was able to get enough, I guess you would call it, notoriety to where I could cross over into acting. And my first role was in a movie called Desperate for Love with Christian Slater and Brian Blue. Following that, within just a year, I was blessed to go to In the Heat of the Night. I had worked with some of the casting people and some of the other projects that they were bringing me in. And when the show started, they moved from Louisiana to Georgia. And I actually watched the first season. Now, the first season was just, I believe, 7 episodes, may have been 8, but they filmed those in Louisiana. And I watched the very first episode, and I remember, uh, we often, as young people, we'd lay on the floor and look up at the television. Well, that's what I did, even as a teenager. And I turned around and I looked at my mom and I said, if I'm ever going to be on television, it's going to be on this show. And God, I think, heard that because within just a few months, because that was March, and in August, I got the call from casting director friend of mine asking me to go to the set of In the Heat of the Night on the first day of filming in Georgia. And that first day, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I was standing outside of the wardrobe trailer. Um, the gentleman walked by me, looked me up and down, and said, "You look an awful lot like a police officer." I said, "Thank you." I didn't know who the person was, but he went on his way. And, the wardrobe person finished with their looking over my clothes, tell me what to wear that day. So I went and got changed and went to the set. And as the day went along, of course, this is the very first day of filming in Georgia, and all the actors who we came to know and love from In the Heat of the Night were there. Bubba was there. Sweet had just come in. That was his first episode on the show. Jeffrey Thorne, David Hart, of course, Hugh O'Connor, Howard Rollins, and Carol O'Connor were all in the scene that day. That we were. It was a large, long scene. It was an episode where we found, or where the police officers were dealing with the murder victim who was hung on a tree, a young lady, and in mimicking an earlier serial killer. And so that day I got to meet all of the characters, all of the different actors playing the various characters. And they put me in what we call in the business a silent bit with Carol O'Connor. And so I had my first experience of meeting Carol and him talking with me and beginning a relationship that became a very strong, almost like father and son relationship over the years that we were together. And over the next few weeks, they just kept bringing me back. And about 6 weeks into the show, they came to me and said they were going to add another character to the show, and they wanted to have me play it. So that's how I got on In the Heat of the Night. And so I think it was God. He put me there. He put the right people, the right thoughts in the right people's heads, it allowed me to be there. And just being there opened the doors for them to create a character for me. And from there, I went on for 5 more years playing Officer Randy Good on In the Heat of the Night. And it was a great blessing, Andrew.
So, what was it like being able to work with Carol O'Connor? I mean, many know him as Archie Bunker from All in the Family, Did you see that kind of side of him, or what side did he show you at times?
Well, it's funny you say that when, that first day on the set, I remember standing there. We were in the woods. It was August. It was hot. It was miserably humid, and we were all just uncomfortable out there. But I remember watching him walk into the woods. He was carrying what was the size of a briefcase, but it was his cell phone. And he set that down on his director's chair. Of course, he wasn't directing. It was his just what we call the higher chairs on the set. Those are director's chairs. Generally, cast chairs are lower. But he set that down, and I'm thinking as he's walking up to that chair, I said, "There's Archie Bunker." Because that's what I knew him as. Even though I'd seen him play the Gillespie character in the first episodes, um, he was Archie Bunker to me that day. And but as I came to know Carol, of course, Archie Bunker was just sort of faded away. Every now and again, all actors use a series of tools that they place into their characters, and mannerisms, and the way they hold their face and their head, and how they phrase their words. Occasionally you'd see a little bit of Archie come through in Chief Gillespie, at least the mannerisms. But he left Archie behind in Chief Gillespie, and even when the opportunity was there was a particular episode I remember we did where uh, Detective Tibbs' niece was there, and I believe it was Bubba's nephew was there, and they were. But the niece was in the chief's office, sitting in his chair, and it was a perfect opportunity for him to do the Archie thing and say, "Get out of my chair." But he didn't. He held back. But you could see, that we all sort of were thinking, "Is he going to do it? Is he going to do it?" But it was fun watching that and getting to see from behind the scenes he and Howard Rollins create that tension, and then the friendship and the love between Chief Gillespie and ultimately Detective Tibbs, who initially started on some shaky ground, both in the original movie, obviously, but also in the series, because the ultimate goal of the series was to share a cohesive and loving relationship between all of those characters who started pretty abrasively in the situations they were put in.
So many may or may not know you are an actor of faith. Share with us a little bit about your journey, about how you came to Christ.
Well, Andrew, I grew up as many in the church did. I grew up in the church. My parents made sure that I went to all Sunday school, and I grew up initially in the Methodist Church, and of course, as a performer of Southern gospel music, have been to worship services and participated in every denomination you can imagine uh, in the Christian church. So I've had a very varied and wide experience as a Christian. I came to Christ at the age of 12 initially, as far as dedicating my life to Christ, and I often say I was born again in my 20s, even though I was with Christ. My solidification as a Christian came in my adulthood, in my 20s, and that's when I really saw myself living for Christ, because He was doing some amazing things for me in my life, and yeah, I knew I wasn't doing them on my own. So I always allowed that to be foremost in everything that I did, that wherever I was, wherever He put me, I was there to do something for Him. And that's in acting, that's in music, that's in everyday life. I've served in public office, I volunteer in my community in various capacities. And God gives us the opportunity to be present and to witness so that people see faith through and in you. And that's the basis of my latest book, Andrew, is Seeing Faith. This is a 31 lesson devotional that I created with seven pastors, and it can be a monthly devotional. But it tells stories. Even there's stories in here from In the Heat of the Night. There's stories from my music career and everyday life and people I've known and seen faith in, and seen how their faith has impacted others. And of course, in my case, many of the stories are their faith impacting me.
You know, you and I have a very mutual friend in common, and you had the opportunity to celebrate their life this week, the Nealons. Share with us a little bit about your experience working alongside Kelly Nealon Clark.
Kelly, I have many what I would call acquaintances in music, people who we've known for a long time. We often cross paths and we might do a show together. And I consider all those people friends. But Kelly was one of the people in our music industry that was more than just an acquaintance. She, from the first time I walked into a Rex Nealon Singer's recording session when I was a teen by accident, and got to meet Rex and Kelly as I was working on my very first album because I happened to go in the wrong studio and there was Rex, and they both Rex and then ultimately Kelly became friends, and the and as Kelly uh, life uh, took her in different took always had the music, but things have happened to all of us in life over the years, and I was just blessed to know Jason and see he and Kelly come together, and of course watch the girls, Amber and Autumn, grow up and see them come into the gifts that God had blessed them with, and to see the young men that God sent into their lives. Um, but the tragedy is, as we've all seen, is it's indescribable. As I said when I went on X, that I just said heartbroken, as there was nothing that could be said for the loss of knowing that Kelly wasn't going to be there. If I just wanted to reach out, say hello, or share something, or try to comfort her or her family in some other situation they may be going through. But that's what life is. That's what friendship is just being there. You don't have to be able to do anything. You just need to be there and be present. And Kelly is one of those that was always present for me. And I miss that and will continue to miss that. And I was blessed by their music. I think they were doing some of the best music of their careers. I'm looking forward to their new project coming out, and I hope that blesses Autumn. And speaking of Autumn, I hope anybody who's watching, if you can reach out, if you can help financially, help them. She not only had her family ripped away, but her livelihood. And anything we can do to support her, buy an album, send some money if you can do that along to their fund that Todd created to help them, and of course reach out to the families. Reach out to all the families, including Nathan's family and of course the Clarks. Jason's parents. If you can, be there for them. They're going to need it.
So, how did you begin your career in music? Share with us a little bit about that.
Primarily through the fiddle. I've been a fiddle player. This you see that right here, but I've been a fiddle player. Started when I was 8 years old, and I think it was once again a God thing. God sent a violin instructor into my elementary school room, and I'd seen my great uncle Tom play the fiddle, Andrew, and at our family reunions. But we lived away from Uncle Tom, so I wasn't around him a lot except at family gatherings. But I was always amazed by the instrument. So when Dr. Donald Greiser came into my elementary school room and he played the Orange Blossom Special, and I hadn't been worth shooting since. I wanted to play that. Of course, he was trying to get all the kids to sign up and learn how to play classical violin, but um, so I talked my mom into getting me a violin, and going from there, I had she had, and that was a tough sell, Andrew, because I had just sold her just maybe a year before that I wanted to be a piano player like Hobie Lister and even May Lefebvre. And so we'd gone through the process of doing piano lessons and getting a piano. And so the violin was a little bit of a hard sell, but it turned out to be what God intended me to do and the instrument that He wanted to bless me with. And of all the instruments, it's the greatest gift He gave me because it's opened all the doors. You know, I would have never been on In the Heat of the Night had Dr. Dreiser not come in that elementary schoolroom. And I not been able to meet the young people who were in those classes over the period of years I was in elementary and high school. And from that group, we put together that bluegrass band, the Peachtree Pickers. And that bluegrass band and myself caught the attention of Bill Monroe, who was the father of bluegrass music. And then Bill Monroe bringing our group to the Grand Ole Opry to appear on the 59th annual birthday celebration for the Opry. And then later on, allowing me to become part of his legacy and become a bluegrass boy as part of his band. And all of the other things that have come since that. But that's where it started. The violin and the fiddling. It's been a great blessing to have this instrument in my life. Now, I'm not always as proficient as I would like to be as all musicians, but it's definitely been what God opened the doors with. And I credit He and also the folks that He sent into my life to be encouragers. And all of those that I mentioned, I included in a book series. I did a series, Andrew, that was called Encouragers. This is volume 3 right here of the series. And in each book, there's 1, 2, and 3. Each book, I do a series of stories telling you about the people that I saw as encouragers in my life who came in. Here's volume 2, came in and played some kind of a role. That could be everyday people, it could be music stars, it could be actors. And this is volume 1. One of my favorites in volume 1 is this gentleman you can see right there, if you can see who it is, but
Who
his
is?
name is Bob Hope.
Oh, wow.
So Bob became an encourager in my life when I was that young teenage fiddle player. And on the backside, you can see here's Ken Curtis, Festus. Oh, I grew up, I wanted to be just like Festus from Gunsmoke when I was a little kid. But Ken Curtis became a great encourager. But this whole book series has stories about these people and how I saw them and how I saw them touch other people with encouragement. And that book series also has hundreds of pictures from my career, as well as recipes from a lot of the celebrities that are talked about in the books. So I see a key way that we can touch other people as being present and being an encourager in their lives. Now, oftentimes we have nothing to give but our time. You know, we all don't have a big wallet. We don't always have what someone needs, but being present, listening, hearing, acknowledging their situation. And if there's some way that we can help with our time, our talents, then that's what God has put us to do, is to making a difference. It may just be an encouraging word. It may be just you're standing in line at the grocery store and you realize somebody is going through something and you turn around and ask them how they are. And from what you hear, you realize you need to pray for them. And so, right there in the store, you take the time to reach over and put your hand on their shoulder, or take their hand and say a prayer and ask God for what they need. Because when we come together, God's there. I think that's the important things that we're here to do. And that's the way we love one another and encourage one another.
So, if you had to pick one story out of those 3 books that you just shared with us that really impacted your life, which one would you say impacted you the most?
Well, I'm going to say can I pick two? There's two. One is the gentleman I mentioned, Bill Monroe, and of course you can see him over my shoulder back here. That's him on the wall with Uncle Pen Vanderver. Um, when I was a young fiddle player, teenage fiddle player, and came into a dressing room after doing a show on stage in Jekyll Island, Georgia, 40 years ago. Uh, I came backstage and um, all the musicians were getting ready to put their instruments up. He had his mandolin out, so we all played a little tune with him, and then everybody put their instruments up. And as I was going to put mine, he walked over to me and said, "Do you know how to play Katie Hill?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And so I played it. He sort of shook his head a little bit, said, "No, that's not the way you play that." And then he started teaching me how to play Katie Hill. And then he taught me how to play another tune and then another tune. And before I knew it, 3 hours had passed. It's just me and one of the greatest American music masters in history. I'm getting a private lesson. And that began our friendship. And then God opened the doors for him to bring me to Nashville and then open the musical stage of the world to me because he's the one who opened those doors. In addition to him, I'd already known as a musician two brothers, Jim and Jesse McReynolds, and they're also in the books. And Jim and Jesse had been an encouragement through me from childhood and encouraged my young group. But once I was in Nashville and once the doors had been opened, they became my companion partners behind the scenes, teaching me the ins and out of the country music industry and helping me, and often appeared as my band for the Grand Ole Opry or on television. Those two are great stories, and all the little things that they did along the way to help me um, in whatever God had chosen me to do in the music industry. And everything I have, I think, is primarily because of those two people. Once again, because of those folks. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten on in the heat of the night because it's all God setting up a particular path for me to walk. And each piece, if you take out one of the, it's like, what is that thing where you stack up the blocks? Jenga, is that what it is?
Yeah.
If you take one block out in the wrong way, the thing comes tumbling down. Well, that's how I sort of look at my career. God set up a path or a Jenga pattern where he built these blocks, and all of these different encouragers that are in these books are pieces of that. And if one of them had been taken out or not had been there, then I would have never gotten to NBC and CBS and all the movies that have come since that I've been blessed doing, all the great stars that God has allowed me to work with and be present as a Christian, as we were talking about. Because not always are all of the actors or all of the crew on a set Christians. So if you're present and they can see faith in you, sometimes that changes the nature of what is happening on the set. Sometimes it changes the nature of what is going on to the film and what ultimately gets to the product that the public sees. And that, I think, is why God puts Christians in the movie and television industry, is we're just a small seed in that larger plan, because ultimately that's what we're there for. We're there to share the gifts that God gave us and to be good. Obviously, we're supposed to study. We're supposed to do the job that we go to do. Sometimes that's playing a good guy. Sometimes it's playing a bad guy. Sometimes it's in between, and we don't really know. But well, whether I've played a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, a savant, whatever the case is, you try to bring, or at least I do, I try to bring that faith into the underlying atmosphere or the underlying, I guess you would say, character, the underlying character of the story, of the backstory of this person. Now, that might be their fighting faith. They may be running from God, or they may be running to God, or they may be searching for God. But somewhere within their makeup, there's a little seed that has to get out. So that's to me some of the fun of creating a character is finding where they are, because that's what you're there. You're trying to bring a character to life. And in most cases, it's a character that never existed except in the mind of the writer. And sometimes it comes from a novel, sometimes it's just from a script. So it's always a pleasure. Sometimes you get to be the arbiter of creating something that nobody ever envisioned. Even the original writer didn't see it that way, but I've often had a writer come to me and say, I didn't see that in the character, but I'm glad you did it. So,
Now, Randall, it has been an honor talking with you today. Tell our viewers and listeners how they can find out more about your ministry or about acting or any of the things that we've talked about today.
well, I would hope you would take the time to go to randallfranks.com. You'll find my latest album that's on CD. The Keep 'em Smiling is Christian and comedy. You'll find my books, randallfranks.com/store. My latest movie is a project called The American's Creed. Folks can go to randallfranks.com/the dash American, no apostrophe dash Creed. You can learn more about the book. You can get the T-shirt that you see over here and support this project, which is a patriotic American project. It's a short film and documentary, an hour of music on that. Or you can find out about my other movies, my Christian movies like Broken and Decision with Natalie Grant, John Snyder movie I did, Lukewarm, so many others, Solomon Bunch. My latest projects, The Cricket Stance. But visit randallfranks.com. You can learn all about it. Like me, subscribe, follow on all the various social medias. You can find us on Facebook, on X, on YouTube. Go to Randall Franks TV on YouTube. Uh, I hope that you'll join us in what we do for the Lord each and every day, because we all have the chance to serve Him in everything He brings us. And don't forget, God sends you someone every day He wants you to encourage. Figure out how you can do it.
Thank you so much, Randall. You have a blessed day.
You too, Andrew. Take care.